The stars had always called to humanity. For centuries, people looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. In the year 2187, they finally got their answer. They were not alone, and soon they would wish they had been. Ambassador Yoon Mira stood before the Galactic Compact Council, her heart beating fast beneath her formal uniform. 12 alien species sat in a great circle around her. Some had scales, some had fur, some had no faces at all, but the ones who mattered most were the Velans. The Velans stood taller than humans. Their skin was gray like stone, and their eyes burned orange like dying stars. They were the strongest military power in known space. They had conquered 30 worlds. They had never lost a war. High Commander Thal watched the human ambassador with something close to amusement. These creatures were so small, so new to the darkness between stars. "We welcome humanity to the Galactic Compact," Thal announced, his voice deep and rumbling. "But you must learn our ways. You must learn the code of stars." Mira bowed her head in respect. "We are eager to learn." Back on Earth, Admiral Park Tae-wan received the news with mixed feelings. He was a military man. He had spent 40 years building Earth's defense forces. Now he was being told to change everything. "The Code of Stars," he read aloud from his desk. His aide, a young officer named Kim Yuna, stood at attention nearby. The rules were strange. No surprise attacks, no ambushes, no targeting of supply ships or medical vessels. Before any battle, both sides must formally declare their intentions. Single combat between champions could replace full warfare. And above all, weapons of mass destruction were forbidden. "They fight like knights from old stories," Yuna said. "It sounds almost beautiful." Park set down the document. "It sounds like suicide." But orders were orders. Earth needed allies. Earth needed protection. The universe was vast and dangerous, and humanity was very, very small. For 2 years, Park trained his soldiers in the ways of the code. He hated every moment. His instincts screamed that this was wrong. War was not a game. War was survival. But he pushed down his doubts and did his duty. Dr. Lee Hyun-soo was one of the few who refused to stay silent. He was Earth's greatest weapons scientist, a thin man with tired eyes who had seen too much. "We are making ourselves weak," he told the military council. "The Velans have followed this code for 1,000 years. We are children pretending to understand rules we did not write." General Choi Dong-ho shook his head. "We have no choice. The Compact protects us." "The Compact watches us," Lee replied. "There is a difference." The tension began over a distant star system called Kepler 442. It was rich in minerals that powered starship engines. Human miners had lived there for 5 years. They had built homes. They had raised families. Then the Velans came. "This system belongs to us," High Commander Thal announced. "It was claimed by our ancestors before your species learned to make fire." Earth's government protested. The miners were citizens. They had rights. But the Galactic Compact sided with the Velans. Ancient claims mattered more than human lives. Admiral Park was called to make a decision: fight or surrender. "If we surrender, we lose everything," he told the council. "Every system, every colony, every dream we have for our future. The Velans will see us as weak. They will take more." "And if we fight?" asked Ambassador Yoon. Park closed his eyes. "Then we follow the code. We meet them in honorable battle. And we pray that honor means something to them." The first fleet was assembled. 200 ships, 50,000 men and women. The finest soldiers Earth had ever produced. Admiral Baek Sung-jin was chosen to lead them. He was old and wise, a man who believed in duty and sacrifice. His daughter, Captain Baek Hana, served on a small scout vessel at the edge of the fleet. "Father," she said during their last communication, Something feels wrong about this. Sung Jin smiled at her through the screen. War always feels wrong, my daughter. That is why we follow the code. It brings order to chaos. It brings meaning to death. Hana wanted to argue. She wanted to beg him to be careful. But she was a soldier too. She understood duty. Come home safe, she whispered. I will try. The first fleet departed Earth on a cold morning in March. Millions watched them go. Flags waved. Children cheered. People believed their soldiers would return as heroes. High Commander Thal watched the human fleet from across the stars. Beside him stood War Priest Morak, the religious leader who blessed all Velen military actions. They actually came, Morak said, his voice dripping with contempt. They actually believe we will fight them fairly. Thal nodded slowly. They are trusting creatures. It is almost sad. Sad? Morak laughed. It is pathetic. They are not warriors. They are children playing with toys they do not understand. The High Commander turned to face the War Priest. You are certain the Council approves? Morak's orange eyes glowed with religious fire. The Code of Stars was written for equals. Humans are not our equals. They are vermin, and vermin must be exterminated. Far away, Admiral Baek Sung Jin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Unity. He looked out at the stars and felt at peace. He was following the code. Honor would protect his people. He broadcast his formal acceptance of battle to the Velens. His voice was calm and dignified. We come in accordance with the ancient traditions. We seek honorable resolution. May the stars judge between us. He believed every word. He did not know that 7 Velen fleets were hiding behind the moons of Kepler 442. He did not know that his trust had sealed the death of everyone he loved. He did not know that in 3 days his daughter would watch him die. The stars did not care about honor. They never had. The first fleet arrived at Kepler 442 on a Tuesday. Captain Baek Hana would remember that detail for the rest of her life. Such a normal day for the end of everything. Her scout ship, the Sparrow, held position at the fleet's edge. Her job was simple. Stay out of the way while the real warriors did their work. Through her viewport, she could see her father's flagship at the center of the formation. The Unity gleamed like silver in the starlight. Around it, 200 ships arranged themselves in the traditional pattern. Open, honest, vulnerable. All ships report ready, came the fleet-wide communication, awaiting Velen response. The code required both sides to acknowledge each other before battle. The Velens were supposed to emerge from the far side of the system. They would arrange their own fleet. Commanders would exchange formal words. Then, and only then, would the fighting begin. Hana watched the sensor screen. Nothing moved. Minutes passed. Where are they? Muttered her pilot, a young man named Oh Jin-ho. The answer came from behind the planet's moons. 7 fleets. Not 1. 7. The first missiles struck before anyone could react. The Unity's shields never even came online. Hana watched her father's ship explode in a ball of white fire. She screamed. The sound tore from her throat without thought, without control. Around her, the Sparrow shook as nearby ships died in rapid succession. They were hiding, Jin-ho shouted. They were already here. This isn't battle, this is murder. Across the fleet, chaos erupted. Captains shouted for orders. Soldiers ran to weapons that never had time to fire. Ships tried to turn, to flee, to do anything. But they had arranged themselves for honorable combat. They were perfect targets. The Velens did not stop shooting. Commander Fall watched from his command ship with cold satisfaction. This was not war. This was extermination, and extermination was quick. Target the escape pods, he ordered. Even by Velen standards, This was extreme. High Commander, the code says, the code is for equals. War Priest Morok interrupted. These creatures are not our equals. Kill them all. Hana saw it happen. She saw the escape pods launching from dying ships. She saw the families, the wounded, the desperate, and she saw the Velen weapons tracking them, one by one. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Jinho grabbed her arm. We have to run. We have to warn Earth. My father. Your father is dead. Everyone is dead. If we don't move now, we die too. The Sparrow was small. It was fast. It was far from the center of the slaughter. Jinho pushed the engines to their limit, diving behind asteroid cover, while the massacre continued behind them. Hana could not look away from the rear cameras. She watched ship after ship die. She watched pods full of people vanish in flashes of light. She could not stop counting. Then came the broadcast. War Priest Morak's face appeared on every frequency. His orange eyes burned with religious hatred. His voice was steady and cruel. Humans of the First Fleet, we want you to understand what is happening. We want you to know why you die. The dying ships could still receive. Survivors in damaged vessels, soldiers in failing escape pods, all of them heard his words. You believed in our code. You believed honor would protect you. How foolish, how naive. Honor is for equals. You are not our equals. You are vermin, and vermin are exterminated. The massacre lasted 3 hours. The Velens were thorough. They checked every piece of debris for life signs. They finished every survivor they found. 50,000 humans went to Kepler 442. 17 came home. Hana's ship drifted among the dead for 3 days. She played dead herself, shutting down all systems, breathing recycled air, waiting for the Velens to leave. She did not eat. She did not sleep. She simply waited, surrounded by the broken pieces of everyone she had ever known. On the 3rd day, the Velens finally departed. Hana activated her emergency transmitter and sent everything she had recorded back to Earth. Every death, every word of Morak's speech, everything. On Earth, the transmission arrived during the morning news cycle. Someone in the government made a decision. Perhaps they thought people had a right to know. Perhaps they wanted to share the horror. Whatever the reason, the footage was broadcast live to every screen on the planet. 8 billion people watched the massacre of Kepler 442. Admiral Park Tae-won watched from his office. He saw the fleet he had trained die following the rules he had taught them. He heard Morak call his people vermin. Something inside him broke. It was not dramatic. There was no scream, no tears. He simply felt something fundamental change. The part of him that believed in rules, in honor, in the goodness of the universe, that part went silent forever. Dr. Lee Hyun-soo watched from his laboratory. He had warned them. He had told them the code was a trap. No one had listened. Now everyone would listen. General Choi Dong-ho watched from a memorial he was visiting. He had friends on those ships. He had trained with them, laughed with them, loved them. Now they were debris floating in the darkness. The emergency council met that night. The room was silent. No one knew what to say. Then Admiral Park stood. They taught us their code, he said. His voice was flat and cold, like metal left too long in space. They made us believe in it. They made us trust them. And then they laughed, while our children burned. He looked around the room. His eyes were empty. No more. No more honorable battle. No more rules written by those who see us as animals. From this moment forward, we fight like humans. We fight to win. We fight to survive. And if they want to call us vermin, then we will show them what vermin can do. No one objected. 3 weeks later, Captain Baek Hana finally landed on Earth. The Sparrow set down at midnight, away from crowds and cameras. She walked off the ship alone. Colonel Kim Yuna was waiting for her. "Captain Bake, I am Colonel Kim. I have been asked to offer you a choice." Hana looked at her with dead eyes. "What choice? We are building something new, something that throws away every rule the Velens taught us. We will fight dirty. We will fight cruel. We will become the monsters they believe us to be. Do you want to help?" Hannah thought of her father's ship exploding. She thought of escape pods full of screaming children. She thought of Morak's orange eyes and his voice saying, "Vermin." "Yes," she said, "I want to help them burn." And far away, in the halls of the Velen Empire, High Commander Thal celebrated his perfect victory. The humans would surrender soon. They had no choice. Their fleet was gone. Their spirits were broken. In a month, perhaps 2, they would accept Velen rule. He did not know that Earth had gone silent not from defeat, but from preparation. He did not know what was coming. 6 months passed. The Velen Empire waited for humanity's surrender. It never came. Instead, there was silence. Earth's communications went dark. Their remaining ships stayed hidden, their colonies evacuated to unknown locations. It was as if humanity had decided to simply disappear. High Commander Thal grew impatient. "They are broken," he assured the Emperor. "They are simply too proud to admit it. Give them time. They will crawl to us eventually." War Priest Morak agreed. "Vermin always hide before they die. It is their nature." Deep beneath Earth's surface, in tunnels that did not exist on any map, humanity was not hiding. Humanity was preparing. Dr. Lee Hyun-soo had not slept properly in months. His laboratory stretched for kilometers underground. Thousands of scientists worked beside him, building weapons that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "The Velens believe in fair fights," Lee told his team. "They believe in looking their enemy in the eye. We will take that away from them. We will kill them from distances they cannot imagine. We will poison their food, their water, their air. We will make them afraid of every shadow." In another section of the facility, Colonel Kim Yuna trained her Shadow Protocol soldiers. These were not ordinary troops. They had volunteered for missions that offered almost no chance of survival. They had given up their names, their families, their futures. "You are not soldiers anymore," Yuna told them. "Soldiers follow rules. You are hunters. You are ghosts. The enemy will never see you, never hear you, never know you exist, until they are already dead." Captain Bake Hana was the best of them. The massacre had burned away everything soft inside her. What remained was cold and sharp like a blade made of ice. "I want the commanders," she told Yuna. "I want to watch the light leave their eyes." "You will have your chance," Yuna promised. General Choi Dong-ho prepared the ground forces. His soldiers would not fight in open battle. They would strike and vanish. They would turn every world into a trap. "The Velens think war is a game with rules," Choi said. "We will teach them that war is hell." Admiral Park Tae-won coordinated everything from a command center buried beneath a mountain. He had not seen the sun in months. He did not miss it. "Status report," he demanded. Dr. Lee answered first. "The autonomous drones are ready. 50,000 units, each carrying enough explosives to destroy a cruiser. They think independently. They cannot be hacked. They cannot be stopped." Yuna spoke next. "Shadow Protocol has deployed. 30 agents are already inside Velen space. They have been planting devices on supply stations for weeks." "The virus?" Park asked. Lee nodded slowly. This was his darkest creation, a disease designed specifically for Velen biology. It spread through air, through water, through touch. Death came in 72 hours. "Ready for deployment," Park said. Park closed his eyes. He knew what they were about to do. They were about to commit atrocities. They were about to become the monsters the Velens believed them to be. "Begin," he said. The first strike came without warning. 20 Velen supply depots exploded at exactly the same moment. These stations fed the forward fleets. Without them, thousands of ships had no fuel, no food, no ammunition. High Commander Thal received the news during his dinner. His glass shattered on the floor. Accidents, his aides assured him. Terrible coincidence. Then the assassination started. Velen commanders began dying in impossible ways. One was poisoned by his own food, prepared by servants who had been replaced by human agents months ago. Another was shot through the eye from a building 3 kilometers away. A third simply vanished from his quarters, leaving only a small device that played Morak's voice saying "vermin" on repeat. "Find them," Thal screamed. "Find the humans who are doing this." But there was no one to find. The Shadow Protocol agents moved like ghosts. They struck and disappeared. They left no evidence, no witnesses, no trail. Then the plague ship arrived. A Velen troop transport docked at Forward Base 7, carrying reinforcements for the occupation of Kepler 442. Within hours, soldiers began coughing blood. Within days, the entire base was infected. 200,000 Velen soldiers died in the first week. The disease spread to 3 more worlds before quarantine could be established. Hospitals overflowed. Doctors worked until they collapsed. Nothing helped. Dr. Lee had designed the virus to be perfect, fast enough to overwhelm defenses, slow enough to spread before symptoms appeared, deadly enough that recovery was rare. Fleet Admiral Dessa was one of the few Velen leaders who had never supported the massacre. She had stayed silent out of fear, out of duty, out of a belief that she could do nothing. Now she watched her civilization begin to crumble. "This is our fault," she told her closest advisor. "We created this. We taught them to hate." "They were always savage," the advisor replied. "We simply revealed their true nature." Dessa shook her head. "No, we revealed our own." On Earth, Admiral Park received the casualty reports. 500,000 Velens dead in 2 months. Supply lines crippled. Commanders terrified to show their faces in public. "It is working," Yuna reported. "They are starting to panic." Park felt nothing. He had expected to feel satisfaction. Instead, there was only emptiness. "Send the message," he ordered. The transmission was broadcast on all Velen military frequencies. It was simple, just Park's voice, speaking calmly. "You wanted to teach us about honor. You wanted to show us how war should be fought. Consider this our graduation." High Commander Thal listened to the message alone in his quarters. For the first time in his long career, he felt something unfamiliar. Fear. "They are not fighting a war," he whispered. "They are conducting an extermination. War Priest Morak demanded another attack on Earth. We must crush them now, before they destroy us." But the fleets were scattered. The supply lines were broken. The soldiers were dying of plague. The commanders were being murdered in their beds. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, Captain Bakhana piloted a small ship toward her next target. She had killed 8 Velen officers in the past month. She kept their insignias as souvenirs. "Father," she whispered to the empty cockpit, "I am keeping my promise. I am making them pay." Her sensors identified the next target, a Velen admiral who had commanded one of the 7 fleets at Kepler 442. He thought he was safe on his homeworld. He was wrong. Hana smiled for the first time since the massacre. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a predator closing in on prey. The Velens had wanted war. Now they had it. The other species of the Galactic Compact watched from a safe distance. They had seen many wars. They had seen empires rise and fall, but they had never seen anything like this. "The humans fight like demons," the Keth ambassador told his government. "They have abandoned all civilization. They strike without warning, without mercy, without end." "Should we intervene?" asked his assistant. The ambassador laughed bitterly. "Intervene? Did you see what they did to the Velen supply network? Did you see the plague? Did you see the assassinations? He shook his head. No, we stay far away, and we pray they never turn their attention to us. One by one, the other compact species began withdrawing their ships from Velen space. Ancient alliances crumbled. Treaties were quietly forgotten. No one wanted to be caught between Earth and its enemy. Colonel Kim Yuna landed on the Velen homeworld at midnight. She was not supposed to be there. No human was supposed to be there. But the Shadow Protocol did not care about what was supposed to happen. Her team numbered 12. They carried no flags, no uniforms, no identification. They carried only weapons and targets. Their mission was called Operation Black Garden, and it would break the Velen Empire forever. The Velen homeworld was beautiful. Great cities rose toward purple skies. Forests of crystal trees sparkled in the starlight. 3 billion Velens lived here, far from the war, believing themselves safe. Above the planet hung 17 orbital stations. These were agricultural platforms, massive constructions that used focused sunlight to grow food for the entire world. Without them, the homeworld would starve. Yuna looked up at the stations through her helmet display. Team 1, confirm position. In position. Team 2, ready. Team 3, standing by. What they were about to do would kill millions. Not soldiers, civilians, children, innocents who had never held a weapon. She thought of Kepler 442. She thought of escape pods exploding. She thought of Morak calling human children vermin. Execute. The charges detonated simultaneously. 17 stations cracked apart like eggs. Debris rained down through the atmosphere, burning like shooting stars. The agricultural systems that fed 3 billion people ceased to exist. On the planet below, the Velen government panicked. Emergency sessions were called. Rationing was announced. But the mathematics were simple and terrible. Without the stations, the homeworld could not grow enough food. In 3 months, people would begin to starve. High Commander Thal received the news during a strategy meeting. He threw the table across the room. They attacked our home. They attacked civilians. This is not war. This is genocide. No one pointed out the irony. No one dared. General Choi Dong-ho broadcast his response to every Velen civilian channel. It showed footage of the Kepler 442 massacre, the escape pods exploding, the children dying, Morak's speech about vermin. This is why, Choi's voice said over the images. You wanted to know why we fight this way. This is why. You killed our children. We remember. We will always remember. Riots erupted across the Velen Empire. Citizens demanded answers. Why had their leaders started this war? Why had they massacred helpless humans? Why had they brought this horror down upon everyone? War Priest Morak appeared on public screens to calm the population. He told them the humans were monsters. He told them victory was certain. He told them to have faith. Someone in the crowd threw a rock. It hit him in the face. The riots turned violent. Buildings burned. The order that had held the empire together for 1,000 years began to crack. Fleet Admiral Dessa made her decision. She could no longer stay silent. She could no longer pretend this was someone else's fault. She contacted Earth through secret channels. Admiral Park received her message in his underground command center. He read it twice, then set it aside. The Velen Fleet Admiral wants to negotiate, he told his staff. She claims she opposed the massacre. She wants peace. It is a trap, said General Choi. Perhaps, Park agreed, but even if it is genuine, I do not care. He remembered watching his fleet die. He remembered the rules he had taught them. He remembered trusting the code. No negotiations, he said, not yet. Not until they understand what they created. Dessa received his rejection with despair. She had hoped there was still time to stop the bleeding. She had hoped humanity still remembered mercy. She was wrong. High Commander Thal gathered the remaining Velen fleets. It was the largest armada in the Empire's history. 800 warships, carrying the best soldiers and weapons the Velens had ever produced. "We will strike Earth directly," he announced. "We will burn their cities. We will crack their planet. We will end this war with one overwhelming blow." Morak blessed the fleet in an elaborate ceremony. Priests chanted prayers for victory. Soldiers knelt to receive sacred markings. "The humans cannot stop us," Thal declared. "They have tricks and poisons, but they have no real fleet. Earth will fall." The armada departed for the human homeworld. They arrived expecting to find a broken planet defended by scattered ships. Instead, they found nothing. Earth hung in space, blue and green and peaceful. No defense platforms, no fleet, no military vessels at all. It looked completely undefended. "This is wrong," said Thal's tactical officer. "Where are their ships?" "Hiding," Thal replied, "cowering. They know they cannot match our strength, so they hide and pray." He ordered the fleet into bombardment formation. The ships arranged themselves around Earth like a noose. In minutes, the first volley would begin. Then the sun flickered. It was not natural. Dr. Lee Hyun-soo had spent 3 years building installations on Mercury, hidden in the sun's corona. Massive magnetic field generators that could focus solar energy into directed pulses. The electromagnetic pulse hit the Velen armada like the hand of an angry god. Every system failed at once. Shields dropped, engines died, weapons went dark. 800 warships transformed into 800 drifting coffins. "What is happening?" Thal screamed. "What did they do?" The answer emerged from behind Earth's moon. Not a fleet. A swarm. Thousands of tiny ships, each no bigger than a person. The autonomous drones that Dr. Lee had spent months perfecting. They moved in patterns no living pilot could match, coordinated by artificial minds that felt no fear and knew no mercy. The swarm descended on the helpless Velen ships. Captain Baek-hana watched from her position above the battle. She had been given the honor of launching the first drone wave. Her finger had pressed the button that began the end. General Troy stood beside her on the command ship. Together, they watched the Velen armada die. "Is this enough?" Troy asked quietly. "Does this balance what we lost?" Hana saw High Commander Thal's flagship burning. She imagined him inside, knowing death was coming, knowing he had brought it upon himself. She did not answer Troy's question. She was not sure an answer existed. The Battle of Earth lasted 6 hours. When it ended, not a single Velen ship remained functional. The survivors were collected as prisoners. The dead were left to drift. Humanity had won. But as Admiral Park watched the debris field from his command center, he felt no joy. Only exhaustion. Only the weight of everything they had done and everything they had become. "Send a message to the Velen Empire," he said. "Tell them their fleet is destroyed. Tell them their homeworld is starving. Tell them their commanders are prisoners." He paused. "Tell them to surrender." Far away, Fleet Admiral Dessa received the message. She looked at the words for a long time. Then she began writing her reply. The war was over, but the reckoning was just beginning. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Earth. The Velen Empire existed only in history books now. Their fleets were destroyed. Their leaders were dead or imprisoned. Their proud civilization had crumbled into chaos and despair. Humanity stood supreme among the stars. No species dared challenge them. No power questioned their authority. The other members of the Galactic Compact watched with fear and respect. But victory, as Admiral Park Tae-won had learned, came with a price. Dr. Lee Hyun-soo stood before the memorial wall on Earth. It stretched for kilometers, covered with names. 50,000 names from Kepler 442, Another 100,000 from battles that followed. Children who would never grow up. Parents who would never come home. Friends who would never laugh again. Lee touched the cold stone. His hands had built the weapons that ended the war. His mind had created the plague, the drones, the solar weapon. He had saved humanity. He had also become something he barely recognized. The weapons are locked away now, he told Admiral Park later that day. The virus, the drone swarms, the solar installations. Everything is sealed. Everything requires codes that only you possess. Park nodded slowly. Good. I hope they stay buried forever. They might not. Someday someone might face what we faced. They might need what we created. Then I hope they understand the cost. On the Velen homeworld, Fleet Admiral Dessa led what remained of her people. The starvation had been terrible. Millions had died before Earth agreed to send food ships. Even now, the population lived on rationed meals and imported grain. Dessa had negotiated the surrender. She had pleaded for mercy. She had accepted every demand. The war criminals had been handed over. War Priest Morak had faced a tribunal of 12 species. The evidence was overwhelming. The sentence was death. Morak had died screaming that humans were vermin. He died believing he had done nothing wrong. High Commander Thal had not survived the Battle of Earth. His flagship had been among the first destroyed. Some said it was poetic justice. Others said justice would have required him to live and see what his arrogance had cost his people. Dessa visited Earth to meet with Admiral Park. She wanted to discuss rebuilding relations. She wanted to find a way forward. Park agreed to see her, but his office was cold and his face was stone. We can begin again, Dessa said. Our peoples can learn from this tragedy. We can build something better. Something better, Park repeated. Your predecessors said the same thing about the Code of Stars. They said it would bring honor to warfare. They said it would bring meaning to death. They were wrong. And 50,000 of my people paid for their mistake. Park leaned forward. I will work with you, Fleet Admiral. I will help your people survive, but I will never trust you. I will never trust any species that stood by while our children were murdered. Dessa accepted this. She had expected nothing more. Colonel Kim Yuna disbanded the Shadow Protocol on a quiet morning. Her soldiers gathered one last time in the underground training facility. They had done terrible things together. They had saved their species together. You are released from service, Yuna told them. Go home. Find peace. Forget what you learned here. One young soldier raised his hand. Can we forget, Colonel? Can any of us forget what we became? Yuna had no answer. The Shadow Protocol soldiers scattered across Earth. Some found normal lives. Some found happiness. But many could not escape what they had done. They woke screaming from nightmares. They saw enemies in every shadow. They had been trained to be monsters, and monsters did not easily become human again. General Choi Dong-ho gave the anniversary speech at the Kepler 444 Memorial. Billions watched across Earth in dozens of colonies. 1 year ago, we lost 50,000 souls to betrayal and hatred. 1 year ago, we learned that honor can be a weapon used against the honorable. 1 year ago, we decided to survive at any cost. He paused, looking out at the crowd. We did survive. We won. But we must never forget the cost. Not just what they did to us, but what we did to survive. We used plague and assassination. We starved civilians. We became the nightmares our enemies believed us to be. His voice grew heavy. The challenge now is to remember why we fought. We fought because we believe human life has value. We fought because we believe even vermin deserve to live. If we forget that, then we have not truly won. We have simply replaced one empire with another. Captain Bake Hana did not attend the memorial. She had been offered command of Earth's new First Fleet. She had declined. Instead, she took a small ship to Kepler 442, to the debris field where her father had died. The wreckage still drifted there, twisted metal and frozen memories. The Unity was gone, but pieces of the First Fleet remained, slowly circling the planet they had come to defend. Hana parked her ship among the debris. She would stay here, she decided, a guardian of graves, a reminder of what had been lost. She talked to her father sometimes. She told him about the war, about the things she had done, about the person she had become. "I do not know if you would be proud of me," she whispered. "I do not know if I am proud of myself, but I kept my promise. I made them pay." The stars did not answer. They never did. The Galactic Compact sent representatives to Earth, asking humanity to share its weapons technology. They were afraid. They had seen what humans could do. They wanted that power for themselves. Admiral Park refused. "These weapons exist because you failed us," he told them. "Because your code was a lie. Because you watched our children die and did nothing." His voice was ice. "We will keep them to ensure no one lies to us again. If you want peace, give us peace. If you want war, remember what happened to the Velans." No one argued with him. Years passed. The galaxy slowly accepted human dominance. Trade resumed. Alliances formed. The scars of war began to heal. Admiral Park grew old. His hair turned white. His body weakened. But his mind remained sharp, and his memory remained clear. On his final day, he recorded a message for future generations. "We learned that honor is a luxury only the strong can afford. We became strong, but remember what that strength cost us. We fought monsters, and we became something monstrous ourselves. The weapons we built, the tactics we used, the lives we took, these were necessary. But necessary does not mean good." He looked into the camera with tired eyes. "The challenge now is to become human again, to remember mercy, to remember compassion, to remember that even our enemies are living beings with families and hopes and fears. We won the war. Now we must win the peace." He died 3 days later. The galaxy mourned a hero. On the Velan homeworld, a child asked her mother about the humans. The old stories said they were monsters. The new stories said they were saviors. The truth seemed to change, depending on who was telling it. "Are they evil?" the child asked. The mother remembered the war. She remembered the plague that killed her brother. She remembered the burning fleets and the starving cities. She remembered the fear that had gripped her entire species. But she also remembered the massacre of Kepler 442. She remembered Morok calling human children vermin. She remembered the arrogance that had started everything. "No," she said finally. "They are not evil. They are what we made them." She held her daughter close. "Remember that. Whatever they became, we created. The monster in the mirror is always our own face." Far away, in the debris field of Kepler 442, Captain Bake Hana watched the stars turn. She had been here for years now, alone with the dead, alone with her memories. Sometimes she thought about going home. Sometimes she thought about finding peace. But the ghosts were too loud. The memories were too strong. She stayed among the graves and waited for something she could not name. Perhaps forgiveness. Perhaps purpose. Perhaps simply the end. The universe continued its slow dance around her. Stars died. Species rose and fell. Wars were fought and forgotten. But in the darkness between worlds, one truth remained. Humanity had answered the massacre. They had shown the galaxy what happened when you pushed humans too far, and the galaxy would never forget.